Okay, I think I'm trying to go live in two different places at the same time, which is always fun and interesting when that happens. So I've got YouTube over here and I've got TikTok over here. So hi everyone. I thought I'd just jump on and talk with everybody about narcissistic abuse, my videos that I post, things like that. And I'll try to go back and forth between TikTok, which is here, and YouTube, which is over there. And any questions that you have, feel free to put them down in the comments below. But I wanted to jump on because there was an interesting thing that I was having a conversation about today, actually, with somebody where I was talking about how if you're raised by a narcissist, there's so much of a part of you that loses your self-confidence as a child. And when I was in my upbringing, my parents often described me as being super, super shy, not wanting to talk to anybody else. In fact, they used to tell this story that they thought was cute about how I didn't talk to anybody till I was 3 years old, and that I would just hide away in my room and I would play with my dolls and talk with them and things like that. And I was talking with my husband the other day and I was like, yeah, it was just sort of like this perception that like I was super shy for a long period of time that sort of was with me all through high school. And I didn't start coming out of my shell until late college or even after college. And a lot of people have asked me over the years, why do you think that happened? And I've always attributed it to other things. And I had this epiphany the other day and I was like, you know what happened? I got out of my narcissistic family dynamic and I started living on my own, and I had my own voice, and I was able to trust my own confidence on things. I just basically got my self-confidence back, or at all, because I don't think I actually had it to begin with. And just being able to hear just my own inner voice and my own inner dialogue and trust that I'm smart enough to do things, I'm strong enough to do things, I'm willing and capable, and can, participate in life, that like changed my confidence overall for the better, and has really had good ramifications for my entire life. But that just sort of like hit me the other day where I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's I'd always attributed it to something else, where basically I had found myself in an environment where I was constantly putting myself in large groups of people. But that's not actually what happened. What happened was I was putting all these crutches in place over a long period of time where for about 10 years, I was a smoker because it was a social thing to go outside and everyone would light up a cigarette and smoke, and that's where the conversations were. And then there was like another crutch where it was like these other things that kept forcing me to put myself in all these different situations. So I chose a lot of like destructive things that weren't really helpful to give me these crutches to get towards confidence. But really what it was just like separation and getting away from really toxic people in my life who had really destroyed my self-esteem and my confidence, and had convinced me that I was a very shy person when actually I'm not. And so that sort of came across me recently. And so I wanted to sort of jump on and share that. But if you're just now joining, I'm trying to go live in two different places. I'm here on TikTok. I'm also over here on my YouTube channel. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and things like that. I'm going to see if I can get them pulled up on both areas. So sorry, I'm going to try and navigate two different things at the same time. So I might feel a little bit more distracted as I try to navigate that. But anyway, so that just happened. And so I want to jump on and share that, because if you are in a narcissistically abusive relationship, whether these are family members, whether it's friends, whether it's an intimate partner relationship, if you're in those kinds of situations for a long period of time, you will feel your self-esteem plummet. You will lose track of who you are and how you think and how you're supposed to behave. You will literally not know what makes you happy anymore, because it's all about what makes the narcissist happy and making sure that you do everything you can to keep them happy at your own expense. That's where the people-pleasing person comes in if you're raised by a narcissist, because you've spent so much of your life trying to make sure that somebody else is happy. So it's such a big thing. And so once you leave these relationships, you will start getting that confidence back. And it's not instantaneous either. It takes a long time. I was actually really surprised in my adulthood when I dated a narcissist and then left that relationship. I thought it would be sort of like an instant I'm going to get back to myself now. And that didn't happen. It takes a while, and you have to be pretty diligent about it as you heal from it. I'm not sure, Ashley, who you're talking about, who we're talking about. I'm talking about my own personal experiences and things that I've gone through. So if someone else is actually sharing a similar story to this somewhere on TikTok, I am unaware of it wholly and completely. But this is just something that I have, come across just like in the last couple of days. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so much more destructive in my upbringing than I ever actually even realized that it was. And that I had always attributed me gaining confidence to other things, when actually what it was just creating distance from these people. And what you'll also find when you're in these relationships, so you'll lose your sense of self, you'll lose your self-esteem, you'll lose your confidence. All these things will be gone because everything is in service to the narcissist. But one thing that you'll also notice, both in those relationships as well as after you leave them, is that when you have disagreements with them, or in the future when you're sort of triggered through your PTSD or CPTSD that you might be dealing with, you'll have this sense of feeling like overwhelmed really quickly, like, oh my gosh, they're attacking me, or they're saying something about me, or I shouldn't have said something, or whatever. And it comes right here and sort of like your upper chest, and it's this shallow breathing that kicks in, as opposed to like the deeper breathing from like your diaphragm kind of thing. And you just get really tense and really tight. That is a sign of trauma, that you have been traumatized and that you have been abused. If you're feeling those things, then you should listen to that. That is your nervous system telling you that something is going on. So again, I'm trying to look at the chat on both things, so feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat. I'm trying to see both of them. I always have trouble sometimes with the YouTube chat. So I will try to look at that over here, as well as over here on TikTok. If you're on TikTok and you're not following me on YouTube, you should follow me over there, because we have no idea how much longer TikTok is going to be allowed in our lives. India, your videos have helped me a lot. I'm so glad to hear that. I actually am very glad to hear that. It's the whole reason why I started doing these, is just literally to help other people, because I didn't know what narcissistic abuse was when I was going through it. I feel like there is just not enough that is said on this topic, that the word narcissism gets thrown around flippantly, like, oh, I dated a narcissist, and it sort of like categorizes people into just like a jerk. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people specifically have these traits of gaslighting, control, and manipulation, and how destructive it is to your nervous system, to your brain, and things like that. The lack of education I had at the time is what motivated me to start posting videos about it, to educate other people. So I'm glad to hear that you're finding them helpful. It's literally the reason why I do this. Your problem is you don't want to see him happy with someone else, because why couldn't he be happy with you? The answer is they won't be happy with anyone. He or she is not happy with the new supply. Don't even be tricked into feeling that way. Remember, a narcissist's social media presence is for an audience of one, which is you, the ex, right? They want you to see only that facade of them appearing happy. When I was with my narcissistic ex, after I left him, one of his ex-girlfriends reached out to me, and she was like, I just need to know, like, was I crazy? Like, what was going on? You all looked so happy. And I was like, we weren't happy. And she's like, but everything on your social media looked like you two were the perfect couple. It was a nightmare every single day. So don't buy into the facade that they're putting out there. And that's why I say, don't go no contact with your narcissistic abusers. Go no exposure. You don't need to go and look at their social media pages. You don't need to hear updates about their life. You don't need to know who they're dating anymore. You don't need to do any of that. For your own emotional safety and well-being, don't even allow yourself to be curious about it. Just separate yourself from it. The moment you stop re-traumatizing yourself on a daily basis is the moment you will start healing. A therapist told me that many years ago, and that has sort of turned into my mantra. You got to let it go. Let them be whoever they're going to be. They are not happier without you, but you can be happier without them. Allow yourself to be so, I would say. Sorry, trying to look back and forth on both platforms here. um, so anyway, so yeah, so what I was mentioning was that the idea of confidence goes away completely. When I was with my narcissistic ex, when I was with him for 6.5 years, and I finally left him, and I realized that I had no confidence left at all, like literally none, and I had no idea what made me happy anymore or anything. And the first thing that I did when I broke up with him was I took myself on a trip. And I did that for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was I wanted to gain trust in myself back. Like, I am an adult and I can put myself in a car and I can go on a long road trip and I can book a hotel on my own, and I went skiing. I was like, and I can book a skiing lesson on my own, and I'm not gonna die, and everything's gonna be fine, and I am an adult, and everything is good. And I also wanted the peace and the privacy of being alone in the mountains and the snow, and it was lovely. It was a very, really good experience. And then also the act of skiing, I hadn't done that in a long time. I wasn't allowed outdoors very much when I was with my narcissistic ex. Literally, he felt like if he's outside for more than 5 minutes, he'd catch a cold. And I was not allowed really to be anywhere without him. So we spent a lot of time indoors. So I was really happy to be outside, and then just like actively skiing down a hill and like regaining my trust and my confidence in my own capabilities. Snow, like pizza plowing down the hill, if you will, like going super slow. But I was regaining my confidence, like physically, emotionally, mentally. It was like a huge thing that I went through. It was very symbolic vacation that I took for myself. I would highly recommend that for anybody who's leaving these kinds of relationships. But yeah, your confidence will be very, very, very low when you leave these kinds of relationships. One other thing that I was thinking as well is as a child in a narcissistic family dynamic, what was really frustrating to me, or what has become more frustrating, and I'm sorry, I have a sneeze in my nose that is dying. Narcissists love to control their spouses through their children. They like to have children to control the spouse, and this goes for both men and women. So my mom is a narcissist. And I can't tell you 100% her motives of getting together with my dad or having kids or things like that, but I can tell you definitely what it was like being her child. We were never a priority, I can tell you that for sure. But then when my parents were divorcing, there was this fight. It was like fight, 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 fight. I want the kids, I want the kids, I want the kids. That was what was said externally. And I think that that's really important because narcissists like to say things to the world. And they also like to do future faking with the people that they're with, but they will say things to the world to try to convince the world, yes, I want kids. Yes, I want this life. Yes, I'm a great parent. Yes, all these things, but they don't actually act on it or behave on it. So in the case of my mom, she moved like across the state, really. It was more difficult to get to where she was, and she was in like a 1-bedroom apartment, and she was very focused on like making friends and going and drinking and partying and like living a single life instead of like being with the kids. Now, certainly there's probably a part of that of like she's getting her freedom or things like that. It could certainly be, it could look like that, I guess you could say. But there are actually like court documents where it's, basically quotes from her saying, I don't want the effing kids. I don't want the effing kids. Meanwhile, she's telling myself and my siblings, I'm the only one who's fighting for you. I'm the only one who loves you, all these kinds of things. And it's like, okay. So she ends up somehow getting custody, even though she's saying, I don't want the effing kids. And then she was nowhere around. It was all about like just her and her boyfriends and things that she wanted to do with her life, and like not at all like caring about what myself or my siblings were going through. My siblings were often hanging out with the wrong crowd. We'll just say that. That's probably like the easiest way to say that. I was mostly not, and just trying to like make good grades and like be in the marching band. I am a musician, for those of you that don't know. And like they weren't showing up to like my band concerts or marching band shows or anything like that. I was just like my parents just weren't in my life, my mom included, who fought so hard to be my mom, and then she was not ever my mom. She wasn't there in that capacity. She wasn't. They're not able to do so. The narcissists are just not able to be there for other people. They just only want people in their lives that they're able to control and manipulate, or that they can use to control and manipulate other people. And unfortunately, kids are innocent bystanders in that. Um, So yeah, feel free to put any comments or thoughts or questions that you all have down below as well. But those are some things that I was thinking about recently, where I was like, man, that really sucks, because you chase and you chase. When you're with a narcissist, or if you're raised by a narcissist, you find yourself in an environment where you're chasing these people, hoping that they will love you one day. And certainly my child self knew that, like, my mom was not interested in being a mom. She wasn't interested in my life. She wasn't interested in knowing who my friends were or what I was interested in or things like that. She certainly was interested in judging the guys that I was dating, but that was about it. There was just no interest in who I was or what made me tick, or even trying to figure out how to be like a good guide for me as a child into adulthood. There's just absolutely no interest in that. So it's no surprise to me that I had to come up with ways to create my own self-confidence later. And I couldn't do that in an environment where someone was constantly like pushing me down. I was constantly chasing, constantly wanting love, wanting attention, and no one was giving those things to me. I spent literally my entire life until I went to college trying to get my parental units to love me and accept me and to be interested in me. And then finally, like, I leave that situation, I'm like, oh, I can be interested in myself. I can do things for me. And then from there, that's where some confidence started coming in. When I was telling a story to someone recently, I took a speech class when I was in college, and the professor very nicely passed me in that class. I used to just stutter and stammer. I'd be one of those people who'd be like, is she gonna make it to the end of the sentence? I'm not sure. I just could not do public speaking to save my life. And now in my real job, in my day job, I am very frequently giving presentations to large groups of people, and I have no problem speaking in front of large groups of people. But I was just so nervous to do that because I had no self-confidence, and I had no one telling me through my upbringing, like, you can do it, and like, here's how to overcome things. Like, I just never had that. So I had to gift that to myself, but I didn't even realize that I was doing it at the time. But yeah, once you get that separation, you'll start getting all kinds of more self-esteem and more confidence and happiness and peace. Yeah, the constant chase, people pleasing. Yeah, people pleaser breeding ground. Exactly, Nina. But pink fluffy unicorns, I like that name. What was your final point that led you to go completely no contact? With my mom or with my narcissistic ex? Probably my mom, since I've been talking about my mom mostly. I have gone no contact a couple of times with my mom, so there's not really like a single point in time. The first time I went no contact with her, I didn't even like understand the concept of no contact. This is before TikTok existed. This is before Facebook existed. I am old. But I had a devastating health diagnosis is what had happened. And I'm fine. Everything turned out to be fine. I thought I was going to die. It was an aggressive precancer, and I had surgery and it hasn't come back or anything like that. But I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated, and I didn't know what to do. And my doctor was really concerned for me and said it was really aggressive and needed to be dealt with really quickly, and they weren't sure they're going to get to it in time, and yada, yada, yada. It was like all these things. And so I called my mom, because you would hope that you could call your mom in a situation like that. And I'm sobbing, and I'm like, this is the news I just got. And, I'd written down like the name of it, and we're like Googling it together and things like that. Within 5 minutes of having that, and this is after my whole life experiences with her. So it wasn't just, This is not this in a vacuum, I guess is what I'm saying. But within 5 minutes of that phone call starting, she was yelling and screaming at me about completely unrelated topics. I was driving at the time that I called her. I don't know. I have no idea why I was driving while I was delivering this news to somebody, but I was. And my car stalled, and my car was a piece of junk at the time. And she started yelling at me about like car maintenance and how I hadn't been maintaining my car properly. And it was just like, there was just so much negativity and hatefulness, and the volume, just the volume itself was a lot. And then she hung up the phone on me. And I didn't call her back for 6 years. I was just like, okay, that's not the person that's going to help me through this. So that was the first time. There are many stories I can say that have happened since then, but ultimately there's always like these events, I guess you could say, that take place that result in her yelling and screaming at me in some capacity, telling me to go to hell, telling me, that that she doesn't care if I live or die, or things like that. There's all kinds of things like that, and it's like you can only hear those kinds of things so many times, and you're just like, If you want to have a productive conversation with me, we can do that. But until it can be a productive conversation, we're not going to do that. This past year, actually almost a year ago, my 1-year wedding anniversary is coming up. And leading up to that, I had asked her multiple times to come to my wedding because we were doing a planned elopement. And she told me multiple times that she would not go. And then she called me up sort of bragging about how she had planned this trip to Alaska. I was getting married in Hawaii, so it was like the same part on the globe, but called me, told me she was going to Alaska for a 2.5-week vacation, basically across my wedding instead of coming to my wedding. And I was like, that was the next line. I haven't spoken to her really since that time. Yeah, that was really bad. It's really hurtful. It's like, even though that I will always love my mom. She's my mom. And I always wish and hope that she will show up as the mom that she's supposed to be. And I've certainly given her a lot of chances to do so. It's still really sad when she doesn't. It's really sad when she doesn't. And I have shifted from I'm sad, although certainly like there is sadness there, to it's really sad for her that she hasn't figured that out, that she's missing out on a relationship with me. It's on her. It's her sadness. Um, Journey, it looks like you're talking about you're setting a budget. Your wife can't agree to a budget. She thinks that you're controlling her, so you back off on it. Those kinds of things. There's a lot of things that could be in something like that, right? So one way that people, that narcissists like to control other people, if this person is a narcissist, and I'm not saying that she is, but one way that narcissists like to control other people is through money. That could be if if the narcissist is the breadwinner, and is forcing the other people to either work at home or to not have a job for some reason, and is fully dependent on the narcissist, and then they like take away any means at all from their victim. There's that. There's also the opposite side of that, where if you're sharing finances, maybe the narcissist is spending all the money. They don't care. They're like spendthrifts kind of thing. Just money goes through their fingers and they don't care, and you better pay for that kind of thing, or they don't care if they ruin your credit, particularly if you're divorcing these people. They will rack up a huge credit card bill, and they don't care if it damages them, so long as it's also damaging you. There's a lot of things that narcissists will do that falls into the bucket of financial abuse, for sure. I know that with my narcissistic ex, when it came to financial abuse, within a year of me dating him, he had me leave what for me at the time, I was in my mid to late 20s, was a really good paying job. I was actually really surprised at the job that I had. I'm still surprised at the job that I had now. And he made me leave that job for a job that paid less than half the money. Because then I was able, when I'm home, I was able to be at home. And he didn't like that I was in a situation where basically I was periodically on call, is essentially probably the best way to phrase what was happening. And that was just unacceptable, because then it took away attention from him, and I should be able to be at his beck and call whenever I'm home, kind of thing. And I was like, there's a couple of days a week I have to be on call. Like, that's just the nature of the job. Like, and there's also a lot of perks that come with that, because like I don't have to go in the office all the time, but whatever it is. So there was certainly that. And then we didn't share finances, even when we got engaged and bought a house together. But somehow there was a rule that he put in place where if I made a purchase over $100, I had to run it by him, which is very weird, because like, I wasn't spending a ton of money. I didn't have a ton of money because I was working a really crappy job, but I wasn't spending a ton of money, and it didn't really matter anyways, because it was my money and I was certainly paying the bills. There was never a time where I was like, oh, I can't make, our half of rent or our half of the mortgage or whatever. That never happened. So I thought that was really interesting. I was like, anything over $100, I have to run by you. That's really weird. And then I come home one day and he had purchased, I think it's called an immersion table, like those things where you like connect your ankles to a table and you like flip upside down and it like stretches your back or whatever, like this huge thing, definitely more than $100. And I was like, he could do it, but I couldn't. I just had to like walk in, and I knew I couldn't say anything, because that's just gonna be World War III, because everything's World War III when you're with a narcissist. And I was just like, that's interesting. That was probably 2 or 3 months before I told him I was breaking up with him. But I was just like, I'd already known that I was getting ready to break up with him. I was just like, well, we'll just file that over there. But World War III is definitely a way to talk about it. One of my friends came to visit me this past weekend, and she was talking to me. She knew me when I was very, very young. She's been a friend of mine my whole life, and she was talking to me about how when we were kids and she would come over and she's like, I hated every minute being at your house, because your house is always crazy. And if we were always, trying to decide overnights or whatever, it was, apparently I said to her on multiple occasions, well, you can come here, but it's World War III. Like, that's a very traumatic childhood. She was like, for some reason you were very normal and your whole family was crazy. I was like, I appreciate you saying that. It's very validating. Matt, why do they lie so much? And when they get caught, they still lie, even when faced with the evidence. It's called DARVO, deny, attack, reverse the victim with the offender. They will never be held accountable for anything. And this is really important, because a lot of people try to collect evidence to bring to people to say, hey, I know you're cheating, or hey, I know that you are a narcissist and you have these problems, or hey, I know that you did this behind my back, whatever it is. And you can literally bring them the receipts, and you know for sure that that is what happened, and they will deny it, or they will accuse you like, how dare you go through my phone, or how dare you not trust me? And they just won't ever be held accountable, and they will do mental gymnastics to try to figure out how what they did that was bad is your fault. Anything to avoid accountability. Anything to avoid accountability. And they actually think that the people they're abusing deserved what they did to them. That's just the way that they think. I know it doesn't make sense to people that don't think that way, because we don't have that personality disorder. These people have a personality disorder. That is actually how they think. And it's very confusing to us. It creates a lot of cognitive dissonance, and we try to do a lot of shuffling around of logic to make these things make sense, but it will never make sense, because it doesn't. There's no reasoning to that other than, it's just part of who they are. They just will never be held accountable ever at all for anything. It's always somebody else's fault, or they deserved it, which is very, very, very unfortunate. Obviously, is not true. Yeah, you feel like you're going insane. And I heard Dr. Romney talking about the word insane and crazy. That is probably the most common word that victims of narcissistic abuse say, is like, I feel like I'm going crazy. And I know there's a lot of like bad stipulation, like what that word like means, like whatever, like you're not supposed to say someone's crazy or whatever. Like that is the word that victims of narcissistic abuse use, of like, I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like I'm going insane. I do not understand why this is happening. This is maddening. I'm doing everything I can to make things go well, and they keep not going well. They don't want things to go well. And you will keep trying to figure out, well, why? Well, what did I do wrong? Or if I behaved this way differently, or if I dressed this way, or if I didn't say that, or if I drove differently, or if I wore a different outfit, or whatever. Like, you will constantly be thinking, what is it that I could do differently? The answer is nothing. The answer is nothing. And it's maddening. It does make you feel like you're going crazy. I was talking about this recently with someone else, where there's a narcissist that I know who, a lot of narcissists will do this, where they will what is it I'm trying to say on this? When you are with a narcissist, whether you're in a relationship with them, or even if you're not, and they're just in your life, like they're dating a friend of yours, or they're dating a sibling of yours, or they're a step parent or something, like someone who's like not really in your life, but they're kind of in your life, they will still be very traumatizing to you. What I have come to realize, when you are around narcissists, even if they're like literally just around them, you will constantly feel like you're trying to interpret their motives and their intentions and what they're trying to say and where they're going to go next and how they're going to judge and how they're going to criticize or what's going to make them blow up. And it has this feeling of, there's a book that was published on this a long time ago, talking about walking on eggshells. You feel like you have to like tiptoe around them because they're going to blow a gasket at any point. And the answer is, there's nothing that you can do to prevent that. The only thing that you can do is to literally separate yourself. That's why no contact is so important. And the story I was about to talk about was, there was a narcissist that I knew one time, sort of just like in my life, sort of like over here, if you will. And oops, sorry, YouTube. I'm knocking my technology around. What was I saying? So this person texted me and CC'd other people in my life on this particular text message, and it was like all this like smear campaign, like Lily this and Lily that, la 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 la, and it was just sort of like attacking me. And what they're trying to do is elicit an emotional response out of you. It was completely a surprise out of nowhere. It was like very, very, very strange that this was even happening at all whatsoever. And I sat there and I was like, oh my God, what is their intention? Why are they doing this? I can't believe they're saying this, blah, blah, blah. And you start like, oh, well, it must be because like they're really mad that the person that they're with is, close with me, and they're trying to, blah, blah, blah. And like, you start doing all of this. It's so exhausting. It is the most exhausting feeling that you will ever feel. And the moment that you separate yourselves and go no contact from these individuals, peace. You can breathe again. The overwhelming feeling goes away and you have peace in your life again. And once you get far enough away from those situations, you realize how that's not normal. It's just not normal to constantly think, what is this person's motives? What are they saying? What are they doing? Why are they going crazy? I must have done something to make them do this. What did I do? How can I change? It's not you. It's not you, which is the name of Dr. Ramani's new book. I actually have a link to her book on my bio if you wanted to go grab it. I would highly recommend it. It's such a good book, by the way. But it's not you. It's not you. It is definitely them. They're intentionally creating situations to make you feel like you are the crazy one. And you will question that. You'll be like, I must be crazy. Yeah, that's their goal. Exactly. Trying to see. Yeah, feel free to put any questions or things down in the chat. I don't know why I'm having trouble getting the one over on YouTube going. Hopefully that's working, but I can't see it if that's happening over there. They get upset about questions about trauma that they caused. Yes. Yes, tried to have many conversations with my narcissistic mom about the trauma that she has endured, and it's I just can't hear anymore about how I'm a crazy mom or how I'm a terrible mom or how I'm a mom kind of thing all the time, every single time. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you about it because it was really hard and I would really like to have a good relationship with you. I just can't hear it anymore. I did everything I could. I did the best I could. Well, the best you could traumatized me. Can we talk about it? I just can't deal with it anymore. They can't. And again, they'll turn it around, right? Also in those conversations with her, she'll say things like, well, would you like to hear my disagreements and my ailments with you? She always uses the word ailments. Would you like to hear my ailments with you? No. I mean, I guess we can get there, but that's not the conversation. That's sort of out of scope of the conversation we're having. But they'll try to deflect and they'll try to change it to something else, and then it turns into whataboutism. And then you find after this conversation of them totally deflecting and avoiding that conversation, that now all of a sudden you're apologizing for things that you did to them, but they never held up that side of the bargain on their side. It's very weird how that plays out. And then you walk away from the conversation, you're like, was that a beneficial who was that conversation for? I feel worse. And I was going with like trying to get a better relationship with this person. That's not their intention. They don't care. They want you to feel like everything is your fault. So yeah, they get upset when you try to talk to them about their issues. Excuse me. You find yourself stuck in rumination, everything's gone unresolved. Uh, yeah, you'll be in like a loop of like, oh, if I did this better, or there were happy times sometimes, or if you're 6 months out from it kind of thing, oh, maybe we could be friends again, maybe we could try it again, or they came back and they said they're really sorry and I'm the love of their life and I'm the one that got away, or like whatever it is, or you're just sort of like remembering, oh, we went on that really nice vacation, remember when that thing was really good, and you fool yourself into thinking it could be like that all the time, but that's not what the narcissist wants. They breadcrumb, meaning that they give you enough positive experiences to have you stick around for as long as possible, and then they will either discard you or you will leave yourself, and then they'll try to love bomb you, and then they'll come back in and they'll just give you enough breadcrumbs to keep you interested so that they don't have to go and get a new supply. But their intention is to not do that all the time. Every single time they do these little breadcrumbing things, it's a manipulation tactic to try to get you to stick around. But then our nervous system wants to always forget about, this is what a trauma bond is, right? Where you get these positive things that happen from them, and then they do something that's really abusive and damaging to you. And that's obviously very devastating, and it's very hurtful, and you'll cry, or you'll go through all kinds of things, or maybe you'll break up with them. And then they'll do something to win you back, and then they'll give you like these little tiny glimpses of what it could be, and future fake you, and like all these different tactics that they do, and then they take it away again, and it's always this push and pull. And so your nervous system gets bonded with that person because the person that's hurting you is also healing you. And so when you separate from that person, you do tend to lean on those things that were happier memories, because our nervous system wants to go back to those happy times. Obviously our nervous system doesn't want to go back to abusive times. And so we sort of like downplay a lot of the abuse. We're like, well, was it really that bad? Or, maybe I'm playing it up in my head, or things like that. And yes, it was really that bad. But that's why that's your nervous system trying to make logical sense out of things and trying to heal from those things. But you're also not processing it the right way either. That's why I think EMDR treatments are really important when you leave these kinds of relationships. That helps to heal CPTSD. Where those things are sort of stuck in your brain. Also, additionally, with rumination, that's actually, there was a study that came out on this where the trauma, those trauma experiences are stored in the part of your brain where your current day memories are happening. They're not stored in the same part of your brain of past memories, which is why we feel like we're stuck there a lot of the time. And that's why EMDR is really helpful, because it actually helps you to process all of those memories through this eye movement desensitization. I can never say that word. And I always forget what the R stands for off the top of my head. But basically, it stimulates the REM sleep that while you're walking through a traumatic memory that's stuck in that part of your brain, and it helps it to get processed. That's why you feel stuck there, and that's why you're ruminating, and that's why you're stuck on the good times, because of the trauma bond that's there. So it's important to break that trauma bond. Realizing that they don't want a healthy relationship helps you to let go. They don't want a healthy relationship. They will tell you that they do. They will tell you that they love you. They will tell you everything that you need to hear, because they know that you need to hear it. And they will tell you those things to manipulate you, to have you stick around. You broke up with your narcissist 6 weeks ago after 8 years. It still feels like yesterday. Yep, it will still feel like yesterday, and for a while, but also once you start going, if you do EMDR treatments, that will help it to start getting processed more. I still felt very much like it was yesterday for about a year and a half, and I know you don't want to hear that when you're only 6 weeks out, and I'm really sorry to say that. It is very, very, very hard to recover from. This is not your typical breakup that you're going to have to recover from. You have to be diligent in your healing. You can't be passive about your healing. Go talk to somebody. I do have some links in my bio. I'm not affiliated with them at all. I don't make commission on them. To low-cost therapy and some free therapy. Same goes for EMDR. Some people that will do virtual EMDR. Go look at those. The best thing you can do for yourself is to try to actively work on your healing. You have to do it actively. You can't be passive about it. Yeah, their goal is confusion. Nina, yeah, helping you learn about how that operates helped you let go of things. Yeah, me too. Me too. It has been so helpful to me, even about 10 years out of my relationship with my narcissistic ex, to start seeing how much this has come into more of the social conversation. And I'm like, yes, for so long, for like 10, for almost the entirety of that 10 years, for probably about 8 years of that, I was like, I feel like I'm the only person who has gone through this. And then TikToking around, people were talking about, I was like, oh my God, there's so many people. It's not just like one in like 5 million people or whatever. It's actually a lot of people that go through this. And that was really eye-opening to me to hear from other people, which is why I started sharing my story as well. But yeah, just learning and understanding like why it is that they are the way they are, not giving them a free pass at all, but learning that for me also has helped, because then logically, like I can logically see like why that happened. I can point to specifically the tactics they use in different situations, and then that helps me to recover from that, to not repeat those patterns, or to not allow people to in my life that have those kinds of behaviors. Helps me to see those things much more clearly. They lose your mind when you don't respond. Yeah, they will lose their mind for sure when you don't respond. They hate it. They can give you the silent treatment, but you better not. They certainly can't take what they dish out. Still under the same roof, married with kids. So I can't remember the content creator's name. I just reposted it right before I got on the live. But she was talking about how we will tell ourselves reasons why we can't leave, and some of those reasons are valid, and a lot of those reasons aren't. And it's really important for you to identify what is and what isn't valid reasons. And certainly there are things that will make it difficult to leave, particularly leave safely. And kids is the one that I hear about the most frequently. I can't leave because of the kids. And I always say that is actually your reason to leave. My dad should have left my mom much earlier than he did for the kids' benefit, for myself and my siblings, so that we wouldn't be raised by full-time by a narcissist. The longer that children are exposed to someone who is a narcissist, the more likely it is that they will become a narcissist, believe it or not, which will stink if you become an adult and then you're abused by your spouse and now you're going to get abused by your children. That's terrible. Or they could become a people pleaser, which is what I turned into. And then I started having narcissistic relationships, having narcissists in my life. And so then I was abused. Not to say that there's a guarantee that those things wouldn't have happened if my dad did divorce my mom much earlier. I'm just saying that you should do everything you can to increase the likelihood that your children will be better off. I'm not here to say that it will be easy to leave, and I'm not here to say that that there's not going to be post-separation abuse. There certainly will be. It requires a lot of strength to leave, but you have to know like what are actual reasons for you to stay and what are actual reasons for you to go, and then figure out what is your safe plan to go. And if you start thinking every day about your excuses to leave, then that will that will help you. That will help you to like visualize it and get it there and start putting a plan in motion. How do I feel healing is ongoing journey after narcissistic abuse? Do I feel healing is an ongoing journey after narcissistic abuse? Yes, absolutely. I 100% do think that. I have been out of my narcissistic relationship for for 10 years. I was in it for 6.5 years. And I would say the bulk of my healing happened within probably 2 years of leaving that relationship. But there are still things that I'm dealing with now. I even went to therapy today, and I still go through EMDR treatments. And I'm also realizing, I had narcissistic family members and my mom, and my dad was a codependent and things like that. So there are a lot of things I realize, I'll still get triggered on some things. I'm, just dealing with the healing of that. But the bulk of it was like very close to the separation and the no contact of those individuals. But you'll always have those feelings inside of yourself of the lack of confidence and the self-esteem that has an effect on you over a long period of time, even when you gain that confidence and that self-esteem back. So it will be with you forever. But I sort of think of it as like, it's like a little pet over here, like a little puppy dog kind of thing. I'm not like wallowed in like victimhood all day long, every single day. And I think that's important that people get to that point where you're not just like, I am a victim and I'm just walking around as a victim. I don't feel that way. The most I talk about this is actually on, YouTube and on my TikTok. Other than that, I hardly in talking about this or thinking about this in my real life, I guess you could say. So there is a period where you'll have to heal, but and then you'll sort of move on from it, I guess you could say. It worries you because how are we supposed to have healthy marriages with so much fear and trauma? Yeah. And that's why I'm in therapy, to make sure that I don't bring those fears and that trauma into my now marriage, right? And to make sure that I'm having healthy patterns as well, because I had those people-pleasing patterns, which is also toxic patterns on its own. So dealing with that, and then also dealing with my own trauma and working on not getting triggered on things that are not ill-intentioned, I guess you could say, and making sure that you understand what are healthy boundaries to set with people is also really important. Understanding what the word boundary is. A boundary is not telling other people what they have to do. It's what you're going to do if you feel uncomfortable with certain situations. Really understanding that can be really helpful in your healing and feeling like you're making progress as far as healthy relationships go. But going no contact with people that are unhealthy and only allowing people in your life that mean you well and that you can have healthy relationships is very, very important. Thank you, Dejeen. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, you'll feel 100% better once you're out. Immediately. And then you'll realize it's not as immediate. You'll definitely have a hooray moment, and then you'll realize now the work has begun. Now the work has begun. I laugh because I went through it. I know maybe I shouldn't laugh at that because that's actually really sad and very devastating. It caught me so off guard of realizing, oh, it's not like immediately like I'm fixed now. I just laugh because it's like, of course not, because it is actual brain damage that they cause to you. What's the difference between narcissistic tendencies and being a narcissist? So when I talk about being a narcissist, I'm talking about narcissistic personality disorder. That is like a DSM. I'm not a therapist, but like it's actually like a diagnosable thing. It's usually something that is acquired in childhood or early adolescence and lasts through someone's entire life. They might, like, if you win the lottery, if you win the $1 billion lottery, might be able to go to therapy to sort of fix some of those tendencies and be different moving forward. But it is their personality. And in as much as someone is introverted, that's their personality type, right? If someone's extroverted, that's their personality type. People aren't going to change their personalities. A lot of people are like, oh, can they change? Can an introvert turn into an extrovert? Like, ever? Like, probably not. Like, if it's actually their personality, right? Like, this is who they are. So that's the personality disorder. And usually therapists will describe it as to make it a disorder. It is disruptive to your life. It's disruptive to your intimate relationships, your friendships, your work relationships. It's sort of like an all-encompassing, like, it's really having negative effects and making it very difficult across their whole life. So with narcissistic traits, there's a spectrum, right? There's narcissism of like, I feel really good about myself and I think I'm the smartest person in the room and whatever. And like that's like confidence in some ways. But that's on the spectrum, but like a lower part, right, of the spectrum. And of course we should all have self-confidence and things like that. And that's not going to cause a problem, right? And then you have like people that have narcissistic traits or tendencies where maybe they've learned some of these behaviors or they just have some of the traits, right? So there's 9 different traits that are in the personality disorder. Maybe someone only has like 2 or 3 of them, for instance. So it's not a disorder, but it's still kind of bothersome. Maybe they're doing some gaslighting or whatever, but their intention is not necessarily manipulation, but maybe it is. So it's a spectrum is really what it comes down to. What I always say is don't worry about diagnosing someone. You're never going to be able to diagnose somebody. And you're never going to convince somebody to go and get a diagnosis either. What you need to learn for yourself is, are the behaviors that this person is having with me, are they toxic to me? Is it things that you're going to put up with? And that's where boundaries become really important. I myself will not put up with XYZ behavior. And if XYZ behavior is happening, I am going to do Y. I'm going to leave the room. I'll leave the relationship. I'll end the phone call. Whatever. I'll stop responding to the text messages, whatever it is. It's so not important to get caught up on, is somebody actually with a disorder or do they just have the traits or are they this, is it toxic? And if so, protect yourself. That's all you really need to know. You're being discarded right now. That sucks. Don't let them suck you back in. Don't let them suck you back in. You still find yourself angry and having conversations in your head. I actually heard my ex's voice in my head for about 6 months after I left him, criticizing me. Even when I was like driving down the road, I heard him. I actually audibly heard him. Speed up, slow down, pass this person already, honk at them, blah, blah, blah. He had road rage. I heard, like literally heard it for the longest time. EMDR can work wonders. I can't advocate for that enough. Going through a divorce after 23 years, no contact for your own sanity, your attorney does the talking. Keep it that way. Keep it that way. But also be aware that they will do everything they can to rack up your legal bills. If it will hurt you, they will do it. Be aware of that. So again, it might just be better to be like no contact at all, even through attorneys. And they will abuse the legal system, which is really unfortunate. That's where post-separation abuse comes in. If they can sue you for it, if they can take you to court for it, they will do it. Just expect them to do it. Even if it ruins their credit and their financial situation as well, they don't care. If it's hurting you, they do not care. They do not care. They will do it. How do you make the trauma bond? The first stage of recovering from this is acceptance that it is even happening. So if you're in it, right, you can answer this question lots of different ways. Like if you're still in a narcissistically abusive relationship and you realize you're trauma bonded with somebody, you need to start planning your safe exit, period. And then you can start figuring out how to recover from that trauma bond. Once you're out of it, you can start doing the work. Get with a therapist, start doing EMDR treatments. Those kinds of things can be really helpful. When you start finding yourself ruminating on the positive memories that you had with them and all the great vacations you went on and all the good times, remind yourself how abusive it was and how actually that moment wasn't really beautiful because that evening the abuse really kicked in or the manipulation started happening or whatever it was, right? You'll have to remind yourself of that, because if you don't, then you become susceptible to 6 months later, they text you and they say, I really miss you. I've changed. I promise. I've had an epiphany. You're the love of my life. And you're like, oh, I want to give it another try too, because all this sounds really logical and like you've been missing them. That's why completely blocking them, going no exposure with them is so important. But working really diligently with the therapist and going through EMDR treatment so you can process those memories so they're not stuck in your present day memories, and you can process them into past memories, and then you can see things a little bit more clearly for what they were when they were happening. He told you he was damaged goods, but still. The shock face. Yeah. If someone tells you who they are, believe them. And you want to be like, no, you're not damaged goods. And you want to like baby them, and then you want to make them feel comfortable. And then it's like they start setting all these rules because they're like, well, I just feel this way because all these really traumatic things happened to me and whatnot. And then everything that they're asking you is actually really damaging to you. And then when you look back 6 years later, you're like, why are things the way they are? I haven't seen my friends and my family forever. The clothes I wear are ridiculous now, or, my hair color, my hairstyle, like all kinds of things that they probably had you do. It becomes really ridiculous. And then you're literally like, I don't even know what makes me happy anymore. You started EMDR in October, JP. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Usually, EMDR takes somewhere between like 6 to 8 treatments, hopefully within a short period of time. And hopefully your therapist is walking you through that before you really start feeling like, oh, it's starting to kick in a little bit. I feel like I can actually talk about these things and not be like devastated about them when I talk about them. And you can go through those moments. What I also didn't know about EMDR, and I found this out recently, is that you can also, if you're actively dealing with a traumatic situation, EMDR can help you to process it in the moment while it's happening as well. I learned that recently from my therapist, actually. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was something it was like only past tense things that you're dealing with. You can also, if you're going through something really traumatic now, like the death of a family member, those kinds of things, you can go through EMDR to help you process that as well. It's not just narcissistic abuse, it's any trauma that is impacting your brain. It's better. You still have days where you find yourself angry and having conversations in your head. Yeah, that'll happen for a while. But keep doing it. Keep being diligent about it. And you'll become less angry. I'm still very, very, very angry at some level, I guess you could say, about the narcissistic abuse that happened to me from my mother when I was a child and even in my adult life. And then the narcissistic abuse I had from my narcissistic ex. I'm angry at them. I think in many cases with my narcissistic ex, he deserves to be in jail. I'm very, very angry, but I'm not like actively angry. I'm not like living in anger every day. I'm not like, I hope that makes sense. Like I can see that for what it was. Like that was really screwed up, and like you're scum of the earth, and I'm angry that you did that to me and that you knew that you were doing that, and that was so cruel. But I'm not like living every moment of my day like I'm just so angry. I'm not, and I think that's healthy, right? Like you can see that for what it was, and that's probably EMDR. Like I can see it for what it was, but it's not affecting me in my present state. Now you can see what they're doing and not fall for their trap. Yeah. Yeah, feeling guilty that you're not leaving sooner, worried that the kids will think that it's normal. They will think that it's normal. Um, there's no way to sugarcoat that. They will think that that's normal, and they won't bring that into their adult relationships. Leave your narcissist for the benefit of your children's future lives. Yeah, everyone's narcissistic to a point. Key difference is when you utilize those traits. Yeah, it's a spectrum. That's so important to understand. There is a spectrum. There's a healthy level, which is like way at one side. And then there's like, I'm controlling and manipulating you, and I'm isolating you, and I'm gaslighting you, and I'm on the power and control wheel, and I'm financially abusing you, and I'm physically abusing you, and all these different forms of abuse. There's that's the personality disorder portion of it, right? Yeah. And they'll love to say that too. Like, they'll be like, oh, you think I'm a narcissist? You're the narcissist because these things. And they'll like point out like these random things like, oh, you think you're like hot to trot because you got like a doctorate in this degree or whatever. And you're like, I'm allowed to be proud of myself, right? It's like things like that. But they'll try to point out that you were screwed up so that they don't have to take any accountability. Remember, they are not trying to take accountability for anything, and they're trying to show other people that they are the screwed up ones. But if you got into the head of a narcissist, you would realize that they think that everybody is screwed up except for them. You have a TRO. Good, good. Paperwork's only paperwork. I had to have a TRO one time with somebody. So paperwork is only paperwork. It is not a shield. It's not a physical shield. Be safe. That's what I'll say about that. Just be safe. You're worrying about the repercussions during the divorce process. I don't think that's weird. I don't think that's weird. Because there's so many layers to that, and I think that just shows that you are an emotionally intelligent, thinking, kind, compassionate human being. I think that that's what that means. That's not weird. There's a lot of different levels. There's a lot of complexity, especially when you're talking about leaving a narcissistic spouse and the impact on the children. There's the one layer of you want your children to have a positive relationship with their parental figure. There's also another layer of you that knows that they're never going to have a positive relationship with that parental figure. There's another layer of you need to have positive, healthy relationships in your life, so you're doing healthy modeling for your children. There's so many layers. And then there's also the legal implications. They're going to drag you through the legal system. They're going to make your life a living nightmare. They're going to be a pain in the neck with the kids. They're not going to pick them up when they say they're going to. They're going to let the kids down because they know that it hurts you and they don't care that it hurts the kids. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. The best thing that you can do is give your children a model where at least half of their life they're seeing someone who is a positive person, who has healthy relationships in their life. They will grow up and they will learn. They'll be able to see, you don't need to tell them this, and I would not recommend doing it, but they will be able to see for themselves who that other parent is and be able to make that decision much more clearly once they get into adulthood. I would recommend, if you have children and if you have the means to do so, to put your children into regular therapy for as long as you can afford it, to help them learn how to express their emotions better so they feel like they're not suppressing them, so they can get validation, because they're going to be invalidated so frequently by the narcissist. They need to learn how to have healthy conversations with themselves, with other people, with their parents, with their friends, with their relationships once they start getting old enough to have those relationships. And a therapist can help them to see things more clearly on things that your children are not going to want to talk to you about, right? And you should not take offense to that, and that's okay. But they need someone that is setting some sort of healthy guidance and boundaries for them. Esther, I love this question. Why does a narcissist stay in a relationship if they aren't going to put in the effort? What's the point? Even after they say that you don't treat them right. Um, because it's easy. That's literally the answer, right? They will put in enough effort to get a supply, and then they will try to hook you and have you stay for as long as possible. Whether that's through having kids with you, moving in with you, making you feel dependent on them, whatever it is. And then they will pull off the mask, they will rip out the rug from underneath you and practically dare you to leave them. And then they will breadcrumb you, and they'll give you enough happiness to make you feel like maybe you should stick around longer and longer and longer. But it's exhausting for them to put that mask on of being a kind and compassionate and healthy partner in a relationship. What they're getting out of it is the drama. They love eliciting emotional responses out of other people. They don't love having connections and healthy relationships with people. That's what we get out of relationships, right? We get, I don't know why it's telling me it's going to end my live, and it's not letting me stop that. What do I have to click on to make this not happen? Okay. Sorry. TikTok is doing weird things. Okay, I'm still here. So, what I was saying is what we get out of relationships is I'm connecting with somebody. I'm, getting reciprocal love. I'm loving them. They're loving me. We're supporting each other. We're a partnership together. We're supporting each other's hobbies and activities, and we're loving each other, and all those kinds of things. That a narcissist does not get anything out of that. They want you to give that to them because they think that they are the best and that no one else is the best and or deserving. So they want that from other people, but they don't get anything out of jointly participating in that. But they definitely also want you to go through really negative things as well, because if they are able to elicit an emotional response out of you, then they know that they are controlling you. They're controlling you to the point where they're making you have an emotional outburst or cry or whatever it is, right? It is control for them, and they feel really good, like, haha, I did that. I have my hooks in them so much, like that's how much I've got them. It sucks to hear that, but that's the truth. That's what they're going through. So they are getting something out of it. You're not getting anything out of it, is the answer. They're getting enough out of it. And then they will probably cheat on you also and go and get other needs that they have started withholding from you met elsewhere, that they could totally get at home, but they refuse to because they want you to be like a mental, emotional mess. And now I've got you, but I'm the narcissist. I'm going to go and get that over here on the side. And then, yeah, it's a big mess. They like making messes out of their own lives and other people's lives. You're worried about leaving your kid's father soon. If you are actually scared, be safe in how you plan your exit. And I really do mean this very, very sincerely. You don't have to be there when they find out that you have left them. You don't have to tell them where you are. Change passwords on things, get different phone numbers if you have to, get different bank accounts, different credit cards, do everything you can to prepare yourself to leave safely. You don't owe them an explanation. No is a complete sentence. Just be very, very safe. Plan it in advance. Don't break up with them on a whim. Be very calculated in how you leave, and make sure that your children are safe as well. The most dangerous that a narcissist is the moment that they've realized that they have lost control of their supply. It becomes very dangerous. Hear that, because I didn't think that my narcissist would be at all dangerous. I was surprised at the level of anger that happened. just be careful, be safe, and make sure your children are safe as well. Because again, they will get very angry, and if they can't control you any longer, they will try to control those around you. That includes your children. So make sure your children are safe as well. You think your friend's in a relationship with a narcissist and he's cheating on her, but they have 2 kids. And it sucks when you see someone who is a friend of yours or a family member of yours who you're pretty sure is dating a narcissist. It's so frustrating because there's not much you can do. And if you say anything about it, it will get back to the narcissist, and then the narcissist will instruct the person that they're with to cut you off. I know that from personal experience because my narcissist had me cut off other people because of exactly that. The only thing I can say on that is if you can have a private conversation with them, if you can let them, because they know probably somewhere really deep down, they might not have admitted it to themselves yet. They probably know somewhere very deep down that they're being abused. And if you can have a one-on-one conversation with them in private where you say things like, I'm never going to force you to do something you don't want to do, meaning I'm not going to force you to leave this relationship that you're in. I'm here and I support you no matter what. I think that this might be an unhealthy relationship. Again, I'm not asking you to confirm that right now. You may or may not, want to say anything. It may be really scary. And again, I'm not ever going to force you to leave this person, and I'm not going to say anything to them either. So I am a safe space for you whenever you want to talk about this at any time. You can sleep on my couch or anything else that you want to offer to them, but let them know that you're a safe space. They will unlikely take you up on it in that conversation, but that seed will get planted way down inside of them. And at some point in the future, you increase the likelihood that they will come to you once they do need help. It's no guarantee, but saying things like that are the only things that would have gotten through to me. Yours blames you when bad things happen to you. They always think that that their victims deserve what they get, both from them as well as like the world. Oh, you got discarded while you're on vacation or on holiday on the other side of the world 3 weeks ago while visiting your family and friends. They love to ruin vacations. They love to ruin holidays. They love to ruin birthdays. That is their thing. That's their thing. That's like the telltale sign that it's definitely a narcissist. And you do have a laughy face in there. I'm sorry about laughing because I know I'm really sad that happened to you just 3 weeks ago. That's what they do. They love to blow things up. The thing is that when you're on vacation, when it's a holiday, when it's someone else's birthday, the attention is off of them, and they want the attention to be on them. And they also want to ruin your life. If they see you happy, they don't like that because they're not happy deep inside. So they want everyone else to be miserable as well. Ugh. That's why they ruin these things. You can never go on vacation with these people. Your friend trusts you. You've been friends over 20 years. And hopefully it stays that way, right? One of the people that tried to say something to me was my older sister, who's been in my life my entire life. And I cut her off because she confronted me. She's like, I think you're in something really, 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 really unhealthy. And I'm scared that you're being abused, and I'm scared for your life. And I didn't speak to her for a very long time because it became a conversation between me and the narcissist of, she's clearly out to get us, and our healthy relationship she just can't stand, and the manipulation. I laugh because I can see now how clearly I was being manipulated. Should you expose a narcissist on social media? I mean, I'm on social media and I'm talking about the narcissistic abuse that I went through. I'm not showing their pictures. I'm not saying their names or things like that. Everyone has to take into account for themselves the implications of what they do will have on their lives. My narcissistic family members, I found out very early on because I did not know how TikTok worked when I first started doing TikTok. And my first TikTok, I like gave a suggestion to everyone in my contacts on my phone of go watch some of this. So that was fun because it was a Mother's Day TikTok about my mom and the narcissistic abuse and things like that. So it was sort of like I came out right away like I'm talking about this, and that that didn't, that's not going to go well. That's not at all going to go well. But if you're okay with that, I'm okay with it because I would rather educate people than be convinced that I have to stay silent. To me, being silent was more traumatizing than like continuing in that relationship. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. To me, helping other people to see this helps me to feel like I am making lemonade out of lemons. But as far as like if you were to put someone's name out there or picture or things like that, don't take legal advice from me. But like you have to worry about things like that because they will pursue things legally if they can. Hi Natasha, how does a mother co-parent with a narcissistic dad? How does anyone co-parent with a narcissist, generally speaking? Here's the thing about co-parenting with narcissists. Always have a backup plan for your kids, always, because they will throw a wrench into it no matter what. You're getting ready to go on vacation, your ex is supposed to take the kids, they're supposed to pick them up at 6 o'clock, your flight's at 9 o'clock, whatever it is, and they won't show up till 11 o'clock to pick them up. Have a backup plan for your kids. Who's the babysitter or the in-laws or your parents or friends, or what's your backup plan? Always have a backup plan. They will also try to fight in front of the kids. Don't allow that to happen. Gray rock them. Allow only the conversation to be based on facts. They're going to try and blow things up. Try to get that emotional response out of you. Stick to facts. Remember, everything that you say or do, they will eventually attempt to use that in a court of law against you. Just keep awareness of that and try to gray rock them. Stick to the facts as much as possible. Don't badmouth that narcissistic parent to your children. They will figure it out on their own one day. Just talk to them about their feelings, validate their feelings for them, talk to them about what healthy behaviors are, but don't do the slandering of the other parent to them. That can be shown in a court of law as alienating them from their other parent. They can figure it out down the road on their own. Don't take legal advice from me. Talk to your lawyers about these kinds of things, but that would be my advice. I'm trying to see this whole comment over here from you. Is it Colibri? What do you do? It's not letting me see all of it for some reason. I'm trying to figure out what's going on over here. What do you do for a non-reciprocal sibling who intentionally does not know how to give back? They only take. Right, so they take, and they never reciprocate, right? So like with my narcissistic brother, it was always like, you owe me babysitting, you need to come to my child's birthday, you need to help my friend get a job, you need to loan me money so I can get work done on my backyard, you need to do all these things. And there was never any kind of reciprocal anything. Like, and then you do that as a people pleaser. You're like, here, let me help you. Because you think that if you help them, if you give them that love, if you give them that attention, that they will reciprocate that. And then they never do. You have to come to an understanding that a narcissist is never going to reciprocate that for you. And once you realize that, you can decide for yourself whether or not you want to continue on that ride, because that ride sucks. Me personally, I say unplug from that relationship and go no contact with them. I couldn't see the rest of the comment though, and I don't know why it won't let me pull up the whole thing. I don't know why it's not showing me the whole thing, so hopefully that answers your question. Nikki, you were feeling down today. I'm sorry. I'm glad to help though. What if they owe you money and they won't give you back something that belongs to you? Count on it. And cut your losses. They won't ever. They won't. I mean, you could try taking like small claims court depending on how big it is or whatever, but assume you're not ever going to get that money back or that item or whatever it is. Just assume, because they're doing it to hurt you, and you just sort of have to move on from it. And that sucks. But you sort of have to judge, like, is it worth fighting for it? Depending on what it is. Might be the answer to that question, but if it's hurting you, they will continue to do it. Sorry, there was a noise in the other room. Oh, your friend. They both told each other they don't love each other, and she's just there to cook and clean and things like that, and she doesn't have the funds to go anywhere else. That's why she hasn't left him. Again, there's a category of like actual reasons to not leave somebody, and then there's like fake reasons to not leave somebody. And I'm not saying these are fake. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying help your friend to see, like, is she just making excuses, or can we start putting a plan in place? There are a lot of sacrifices you have to make when you leave a narcissistic relationship. For instance, you might be used to one standard of living and you've got to downgrade. That could be one thing. Sorry, I'm distracted by the comments that are coming on over here. But there's a lot of things that you have to reorient your life. You have to re-understand, I guess you could say, what your expectations are for your life as well. But you have to understand that, like, if you go down to like much more humble means than you are right now, you're going to be much more at peace and you can build your life back up. But a lot of people don't want to let those things go. So you have to really, if you have an open dialogue with her, start trying to have her have more conversations on, let's create excuses to leave instead of continuing to reiterate excuses to stay. What are your excuses to leave? And how can we start taking baby steps to get there? There is a portion that, yes, you're stuck, but let's figure out what are the baby steps to help you get unstuck. And that might also be, maybe there's, look to see if there's like domestic abuse, like sort of like halfway houses, if you will, to help people get out of those situations. Look to those kinds of resources within your city. There might be some things there. Talk to a lawyer as well. They might have some ideas. Talk to, attorneys and things like that deal with domestic violence, and they might have lists of places that you can call. Why do narcissists give unexpected gifts? They leave these weird gifts at your door with no note. It's just weird. Because now you're thinking about them. Maybe you'll call them. Maybe you'll say, "Hey, did you leave this?" And they'll say, "No, I didn't." Or, "Yes, I did. And, I was just thinking of you, and it was just an innocent thing." Like, what? It's because they're trying to open up a dialogue with you without actually opening up a dialogue with you, because I'm trying to respect your boundaries because you said no contact, so I didn't want to put a note on there or whatever, but now you're reaching out to me, so now here's my in again. Don't open those gifts, throw them away. In the future, they might say, "Hey, I sent this to you, and since you didn't want anything, now you owe me money for it." Like, just be careful with the kinds of things that you receive from people. Yeah, it looks like Camellia and Nikki all are going back and forth. Yeah, I would say try to find the things. Again, it's about, let's find the excuses to leave, not the excuses to stay. What are the baby steps to get there? If we're talking about there's a lot of credit card debt, those kinds of things, now it's time to consolidate that credit card debt. Let's go to a company that will help you to do that if that is the case. Or do you have an option for 0% balance transfer to another credit card? Or can you call some of the creditors and try to negotiate for a lower price? And don't take financial advice from me, don't take legal advice from me, but like, start working a plan. You donated the plant that he gave to you for your birthday. Immediately walked. You gave it to the sales clerk. Yes, get rid of those gifts. where does a narcissist start? Why are they like the way they are? It usually starts in childhood. It's usually started by one of two different things. They were either abused by a narcissist themselves, or they're overly spoiled by their parents. It's usually what happens. Some people are just biologically more predisposed to having that kind of a personality disorder, but it's usually one of those two things. They're overly spoiled, they never heard no, they think that they're the best thing since sliced bread, or they were abused by someone that was a narcissist. You don't really need to know exactly the reason why, and a lot of times you like to be like, oh, I'm a victim too, and you don't need to be a martyr for these people. Everyone is responsible for fixing their own issues so that they don't damage other people. We all have some things that happened to us in our past. Do we all allow those things to damage other people in our lives? Probably not, or at least we try not to, right? Whereas they actively are trying to hurt other people. But it's usually formed, the personality disorder is usually formed in toddlerdom, young adolescence, very young. It's not usually formed later in life, right? Usually if someone is completely healthy and normal in their childhood, it's not going to turn to a narcissistic personality disorder later. They could adopt traits later. There's also been some studies around like celebrities developing like celebrity narcissism, later in life. Those are more like traits, not necessarily personality disorder. Personality disorder means that it's disruptive to their life. It's very destructive to their personal relationships, their work relationships, everything in their life. It's just sort of is making everything sort of fall down around them. Yeah, you don't think that she wants to leave even though she says it. Yeah, because we make excuses to stay. It's very scary to leave. It's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And then you're also very much, when you're in a narcissistic relationship, you're talked into, no one will ever want me again. No one will ever love me. I'm not worth anything. Your self-esteem is way, 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 way low. And that's when really dark thoughts start to creep in. So be really careful. Someone in that situation, just be, for their own life. I started thinking, do I have it? I had it right around me just the other day. Do I have it in this drawer? I don't. Wait. No, I don't. I started having a mantra in my head in the last 6 months that I was with my narcissistic abuser, where I just kept saying, be your own hero, be your own hero, be your own hero. Because I started realizing I was having really dark thoughts. And I was like, oh, my life is worth saving. My life is worth saving. And I started getting really passionate about, I have to save my own life. I have to save, no one else is going to do this. I have to save my own life. I have to be my own hero. And I just started saying that to myself every single day. Those dark thoughts get in there because you feel like you're stuck. You can't leave. No one's ever going to want me ever again, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when it becomes urgent. You must leave. You must leave. Yeah, narcissists act like a good person around everybody else. Of course they do, right? They're very talented at having that mask on their face of being the very nice, charming person that you likely fell in love with, right? They know how to be that person. They know how to be very well liked. I feel like that gets said all the time, but no one ever really believes that. Even me, as someone who has been really educated on this, just in the last couple of years, I myself, with some of the sort of in my friend group, if you will, got tricked by someone. I was like, oh my gosh, that's just like the nicest person. I just really like them. They're super kind and sweet, and they're fun, and they're funny, and la 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 la. And then I realized, oh wow, because then I had a different, more close interaction with them. I was like, oh, that's really toxic. Oh my gosh. And then I started realizing, like, why are they doing that? And you go through that over analyzing thing, you become really overwhelmed. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Let me zoom out here for a second, because this feels really familiar to all these other things. And then I started looking at more context. I was like, oh, this person's at least from my opinion, a narcissist. Again, right? You're not diagnosing people. You're seeing these traits and you're realizing things that are toxic, and you're putting boundaries in place. What are the first red flags to pay attention to with a narcissist? What's likely to attract them? They do pretend very well. Hi, I have a cat that's coming in. Do you want to come up here and say hi to everybody? Maybe. You're thinking about it? Okay. Come here. Red flags for narcissists. Sorry, distracted. Come here. I promise I'll get to your question. Come here. You want to say hi? He's a cat. This is Brella. Hi. I actually got this cat with my narcissistic ex, and I took her and her sister because I didn't want the monster to have them. And they have a much happier home now. So she is just over 10. Anyways, okay, narcissistic red flags. Sorry. Squirrel. So in the first dates with a narcissist, so the first stage of narcissistic abuse when in an intimate relationship, right? This is different than if you're in a family relationship, but if you're dating somebody who is a narcissist, the first stage is a love bombing stage, which means that they're going to be overly gushing with love. They're probably going to use the L word very early in their relationship. They're going to ask a lot about you. They're going to ask you to share a lot of things about yourself. They're going to start mirroring that, and they're going to say, yeah, me too, all those kinds of things. And then you're like, oh wow, this person really knows me really well. That's very cool. And you start feeling like you're just sort of like synced up with them. Like, no one's really understood me like that before. Now they're like, oh, let's move in together after like 3 weeks. Like, things move really fast with a narcissist, and it feels like you're being love bombed. You feel overwhelmed with love, and it feels joyous at the time. That is a huge red flag. That is a huge red flag if that is happening. And so you have to give it time to sort of like analyze it and say, okay, am I learning about them? Are they just telling me what I want to hear? Are they just mirroring back to me? Am I actually learning anything about them? Try to dissect that a little bit more and try to push in, and don't let the relationship move too quickly, because that is their favorite thing to do, is to move way too fast. Those are the early signs, right? So you get the love bombing, then you get the devaluing, discarding, and the hoovering stage. That's the typical four stage cycle that narcissists go through. That love bombing stage for me lasted about 6 months with my narcissistic ex. Most people that I hear from about the same time frame, but I've also heard of others say that it lasted over a year for them. But usually it's really hard for them to hold the mask on for that long of a period of time. It usually falls within a couple of months. Do they treat one supply better than the other? Does everyone go through the cycle? Their next partner is not better off than you. I'll say that on the one hand. On the other hand, if you're in a narcissistic family dynamic, everyone has a part to play. So there's like the golden child and the scapegoat and like the codependent person, like all these different chess pieces that the narcissist is working with. The golden child is usually gushed upon. They're sort of like the love bombed one. They get all the attention. They can do no wrong. They're also sort of being abused in some ways. Like, they have to stay in good graces with the narcissist. So like that's probably like the only person that ever gets like treated well by the narcissist. And then their friends, they tend to have very surface level friendships with, but they tend to be nice at that surface level with those people for, so long as they feel like they're getting some benefit out of that relationship. But as far as like from one intimate relationship to the next, they're not treating the next person better than you. They're absolutely not. It looks that way. They want it to look that way. They're constructing their social media to look that way. That's why I say go no exposure. You don't need to look at their Facebook or their Instagram or their Snapchat or whatever it is that people are using these days. You don't need to see that. You don't need to see it, because it's a mask. It's a disguise. I had coffee actually with my one of my narcissistic ex's ex-girlfriends right after I broke up with my narcissistic ex. Did you all follow that? She reached out to me about 3 months after I broke up with him, and she was like, I would like to go to coffee with you. And we went and we sat down, and she was like, and she was asking these kinds of questions. It looked so good. Like, was it me? Because it looked like you all were so good. Is he really actually a great guy? And I just didn't know. And I was like, oh my God, he was a monster. He's the worst person that has ever come into my life. And we started trading stories, and she would tell me some stories, and I was like, oh, that's really funny, because they also obsess about their exes. That's coming back to the red flags question over there on YouTube. They're obsessed with calling all their exes crazy or having crazy stories about them. But so he was telling me all kinds of crazy stories about his crazy ex-girlfriends, and so she would tell me a story, and I was like, oh, it's really interesting, because the way he told me that story was this, and she's like shocked, like, that's nowhere near the truth. Like, not even like a fraction of it. It was actually like this really destructive thing that he did over here. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because they can't take accountability for it. So they love to be able to show the world that they're perfect and that they're great, but they are not, and they have not changed. If you're not available for their abuse, will they abuse their narcissistic mother? So I have a narcissistic brother and a narcissistic mother, and a codependent father. And my narcissistic brother, like, very much does all these like chess pieces and things like that. And certainly, right? So my narcissistic brother has 4 children, and he is pretty much known for, if someone has pissed him off that week, which could be just calling him out on, like, calling my sister-in-law a bad name in front of them or in front of the children or things like that, like, hey, don't use that language around me, and then all of a sudden, like, you're cut off from his children for the next 6 months or whatever it is. Those are the kinds of things that he does, and it doesn't matter who you are. He does that to everybody. Do they have outbursts? Yeah, absolutely. Not all of them. Not all of them. My narcissistic brother does. My narcissistic mother does. My narcissistic ex didn't. And that's what was really confusing to me, because I was like, well, he's not yelling and screaming at me, so this can't be abuse. And he's not being physical with me, so it can't be abuse. Like, those are the mental gymnastics that I did. He was like cerebral, like super calm. I posted actually a couple recordings of our conversations on both my TikTok and my YouTube that you can go listen to. And it's like, you listen to it for like 5 or 10 seconds and you're like, I'm already asleep. And it also sounds really screwed up. But I talked myself into it wasn't abuse, because it wasn't an outburst. I felt like he wasn't being verbally abusive, because there was no volume and like tension, I guess, in that kind of a way coming at me. But I would say most narcissists throw like temper tantrums is probably the best way to say it. But not all of them do. Not all of them do. They're very childlike, right? They lack a sense of self on the inside. They're stuck in a childlike state. So their emotions are coming from that childlike state. I don't know about psychosis or other delusions or things like that. I don't know the answer to that. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm surrounded by narcissists. I was raised by a narcissistic mother, and so one of my siblings unfortunately turned into a narcissist. I'm one of 7. None of my other siblings turned into a narcissist. They're all wonderful people. And I dated one narcissist out of all the people I've dated in my life, and I'm married to not a narcissist. So I have, like, I guess you could say 3 key narcissists in my life. If that's surrounded by, I mean, I guess. But, you know, again, I'm one of 7 siblings, and only one of them turned into a narcissist. It's sort of like, unfortunately, I've had too much exposure to it. And now it's like I can't unsee it either, right? So I see these traits in people sometimes as well, where I'm like, oh wow, that sort of caught me off guard. But no, I don't just like walk around thinking like everyone's a narcissist or that person's a jerk, so therefore they're a narcissist. I don't think that way. I don't go through that at all. But certainly my radar goes off when certain things start happening. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's not a normal way to have taken that, or to have responded to that, or that doesn't really match the situation. Yeah, so my radar will go off. It doesn't necessarily, everyone has a bad moment, right? So you have to think of the context as well, and your lived experiences. If this is an ongoing pattern thing, that's something to definitely look at. Is the nice guy narcissist harder to pick out, or is that not a real thing? I mean, I would say that my narcissistic ex falls into the category of nice guy. For me, it was hard to pick out, but sorry, I'm distracted. There's a lot of noise going on around my house. It's different for everybody. I don't know how to answer that, right? Once you understand what the pattern is and what the cycle is and what the behaviors are like, that's true whether they're nice or a mean person. I think it's just education helps you to see it. I don't think it really matters whether they come off as nice or whether they come off as mean. I would say that's different for everybody. I don't really know how to answer that one. It's not a chemical imbalance. It's not something that they can be medicated with. It's not a chemical imbalance. Nope. It's a personality disorder, right? It's not something that there's 4 different personality disorders in the cluster B in the DSM: narcissistic personality disorder, borderline, histrionic, and antisocial personality disorder. They're not things that can be medicated for. There are things they can do in talk therapy to help them to overcome that, to change those behaviors, but it's a thinking pattern. That's not a chemical imbalance. It's a way that they view life and the way that they hear things, the way that they behave. It's not a chemical imbalance. Some will co-present with other things. Like sometimes a borderline might also have bipolar, and you can take medication for that, right? So sometimes they'll co-present with other things, and those things can be medicated. But narcissism is it's not something they can heal from, and it's not something they can be medicated to help them. It's getting kind of late, so I'll answer just a couple more questions. How can you distinguish a covert narcissist and a normal narcissist? Malignant narcissist, there's communal narcissists, there's like 8 different kinds of narcissists. Dr. Romney goes through all of them in her book, It's Not You. I do have that linked on my bio. If you want to grab a copy, I would highly recommend it. The covert narcissist is considered the most dangerous kind of narcissist, and it's the hardest to spot. And this kind of comes back to like the nice guy kind of thing. I feel like that might be maybe even more like the communal one, like a nice guy. I don't know. But a covert narcissist is more like, I did this really crappy thing to you, but I didn't think it was crappy. Like, what? It has that's their reaction. Like, why did that hurt your feelings? Like, I don't get it. That doesn't make any sense to me. What? And it's like super obvious. That'd be really, really hurtful to anybody. That's a covert narcissist. They're very manipulative. And they come off as like, oh, I'm so sorry that hurt you, but they don't really care. And they don't actually, like an apology is consistent changed action. They don't understand how to change their behavior. So that's the covertness, is like, it's in between the lines kind of thing. Whereas a malignant narcissist is like straight up a bully. Like they don't care how you take it. They're just going to keep going at it as hard as they can. And then you have the communal narcissist that's very much, like community service and things like that. And they're like a philanthropist, and they do all these great things for the community. And then they come home and they're like an absolute freaking nightmare at home. But everybody sees them as such a great person that, is dedicating to all these great causes and things like that. But they're a monster behind closed doors. So people don't believe you when you say that person's a monster. Like, how could they be a monster? They do all these great things for the world and for society and for our community. Those are the differences. You wonder if he just has the traits or if he's a true narcissist. Again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If someone is being toxic to you, like, that's it, right? Separate yourself from the situation. You will never get a diagnosis, and you should never diagnose somebody else, but you can know. It's a descriptor, right? They are acting like a narcissist. It is a descriptor. Like, someone is a happy person, that person's a narcissistic person, right? It's a descriptor. Like, that in that description is they tend to control, they tend to manipulate, they tend to gaslight, they tend to do these things. Those are narcissistic traits. It doesn't matter if they have the personality disorder or not. That what the way in which they're behaving with you is toxic. That's all the information you need to know. That is it. You don't have to get proof. You don't have to show them receipts, and you don't have to convince them to fess up, and you don't have to convince them to go and get diagnosed for it elsewhere either. You're never going to get any of those things. You have to give yourself your own closure and your own understanding of what the situation is, and then separate yourself from the situation. Going no contact is the right thing to do. Religion absolutely has an effect on narcissism. Some people definitely lean into that, right? Getting the power and control that religion will give them. So some of the things with my narcissistic ex, I would consider spiritual abuse as well. It wasn't Christianity. It was more like a meditative kind of a practice, but certainly this can apply to that. But he certainly had the mindset of like women are meant to serve men and like those kinds of things, and like that power dynamic, he leaned into that kind of thing. So certainly religion can help to reinforce some of those really, really bad tendencies of a narcissist. Not all the time. I'm not a religious person anymore. A lot because of what happened to me. Not to, if you are religious, that's fine. That's your own thing. But certainly if both people in the relationship are religious and one of them's a narcissist, they can and will use religion to help to support why they're controlling and manipulating you. Absolutely. Yeah, they have narcissistic tendencies. You don't need a diagnosis. If you feel the relationship is off, it probably is. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's sort of like when I started thinking, I was like, man, I feel like I'm being abused, but like I'm not being physically hurt, and he's not yelling and screaming at me. And there was literally a moment where I was like Google searching, is XYZ behavior abusive? If you find yourself doing those kinds of Google searches, you're being abused. Like, yes. The answer is yes. All right, the one last thing I'll leave you all with, because I need to get on with my evening. What I will say is, if you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship, first off, I'm very sorry for your situation. That's very sad. And you are the person who needs to get you out of that. Find your support system if you have one, but make sure that you plan your safe escape, and it is worth it. You might feel like it's not. You might feel like that you're worthless. You might feel like you'll never find something else moving forward. You will. You can heal from this. You can put it behind you. You can, and you deserve to have a happy life. Only you can help to make sure that happens for yourself. Take your own personal responsibility to move yourself into a better situation if you can. You definitely deserve it. That's what I will say. So I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll talk again soon.